in our culture, faith is seen as a crutch for the weak. You know, I mean, you look at people like Miley Cyrus, and she looks at people like me and says, man, faith is for weak people. It's fairy tales. Who believes that? That's for weak people that need a crutch. Well, here's the thing that Miley Cyrus needs to know. Here's the thing that you need to know. People that float downstream are weak people. It's the strongest people in our culture today are real Christians, not just people who play Jesus and call themselves Christians, but real Christians who live for the glory of God. That's the strongest, boldest, most daring people I know. Any weak person can float downstream, right? So we call this, you know, our culture thinks it's weak, but man, the strongest people are the people who fight fear with faith. And here's what you need to understand. Why? Because fear keeps so many Christians from living on mission. Fear keeps so many Christians from attempting anything of any significance for the kingdom. I mean, people want to, but they're afraid. People say, I'd love to go on a mission field, but I'm afraid of quitting my job. I'm afraid of moving away from my family. I'm afraid. I know all those are real issues. I'm afraid of leaving my comfort zone. Those are real issues. But if you feel like you need to be on the mission field, you got to fight fear with faith. Many people are afraid that for their children to go on the mission field, it might not be safe. It might be costly. You got to fight fear with faith. Many people don't ever share their faith at work because, man, I'm afraid I might lose my job. So what? There's more jobs, right? Listen, fight fear with faith. Some of you dating non-Christians. The Bible says not to if you're a believer, but you're afraid, man, if I don't, I might be alone. You got to fight fear with faith. If you want to do something, if you want your life to matter, if you want your life to really count, if you want to be in the game, you got to fight fear with faith. Now, what you have to understand is all of life has an element of risk. And faith is a risk. It's not risky. There's a difference in a risk and risky. Risky means if I do this, it might not. Listen, God's in control, so it's not risky, but it's a risk, right? Because it might cost you something. I mean, but all of life has an element of risk. All of you guys out there, when I look at you, every time you're eating that Baconator and every bite, you have a risk of having a heart attack mid-bite, right? All of life has an element of risk. But faith, biblical faith means it's a risk for the glory and the praise of God. It's a risk for the honor of God. It says, I'm going to attempt something God-honoring, God-exalting, God-sized for the glory and for the honor of God. That's what Moses' parents did. That's what Moses' parents did. That's what we should do. When we say, man, I might lose my job, but I was looking for a job when I got this one. I might, if I break up with this non-Christian, I might be alone. Okay. You got to trust God. Listen, I might lose friends if I do this. So what? They're losers anyway. You don't want to be around loser people, right? So it doesn't matter, right? So you got to fight fear with faith. And that's what Moses' parents did. They took a God-honoring, God-exalting faith stance, strong people. And God used them to rock the world, okay? Now, they had faith. But here's another element of faith that I want you to see. They planned and they worked hard. Let me tell you why I want to say that. Because some people think, well, I just got to pray and let go and let God. Well, there's some truth in that statement, but let me tell you, you can't depend on yourself. You depend on God, but you got to work hard. Let me tell you what Moses' parents did. Man, they prayed. They had faith. They depended on God. But let me tell you what they did. Man, they made plans. They planned this whole thing out in detail and worked hard. Man, she made her a basket that would withstand. She souped this basket up. It would withstand a Category 5 hurricane, right? Her son ain't going down in this basket. I mean, she timed her drop, at the precise time when Pharaoh's daughter would come down for her daily swim or her bath or whatever. I mean, she had Miriam, Moses' sister, was watching from the bank everything that was going on. They planned the whole detail. Didn't mean they didn't have faith. It meant they were responsible. It meant they were responsible. It meant that they worked hard. They didn't depend upon themselves. There's a balance that you have to strike between not depending upon yourself, depending upon God, but working hard and trusting God. Okay? You gotta work hard, right? You've got to depend on God, and you've got to work hard and do all that you can. Because listen, like I said, this whole thing about let go and letting God. Now that sounds good, but if you need a job, Man, you can't just say, well, I'm going to pray about it and let go and let God. That doesn't mean you're faithful. That means you're lazy, okay? Get out and look for a job, right? But beat the bushes. Pray and depend on God, but beat the bushes, right? I mean, your marriage is burning down. I mean, your marriage, you have no man. Well, I got to pray, and man, the Lord changed my marriage and my husband, well, or my wife, and that's true. Oh, man, you got to pray, and you got to pray that God will change you, first off, before he changes your husband or your wife. And then you've got to do everything you can, right? You got to be faithful. So Matthew Henry, great old-time commentator, says, duty is ours, events are the Lord's, right? I mean, we've got to work, and that's what we see them do. We see them working. We see them not self-dependent, dependent upon God, but we see them working hard, all right?